All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Two Track Line podcast. I'm Jason Liu, joined by...
And I am Jason Lee.
Just one letter between us. One letter between us, but we're very different people.
Absolutely.
Only our white friends get us mixed up.
Yes.
All right, so a couple of things I want to talk about today. Basically, the one thing in the auto industry that everyone's talking about that cannot be avoided. So for a driver's meeting, we're going to talk about the tariffs that are happening in the U.S. We'll try to not be very political about it, just kind of talk about what it's potentially going to be like for car enthusiasts. And other things I want to talk about is, so Nissan has a new CEO, and they've promised, or he's saying that they want to bring a few more Halo cars back out, and some of them to be more affordable than what you traditionally kind of think about as a Halo car. They've got a lot of brands that they could bring back. They've kind of been in a bit of a sticky situation past a little while, and nothing really exciting coming out of Nissan, despite it being like, back in the 90s, massive, right?
Right.
For Shop Talk, wanted to talk about our friends Formula Delta is bringing a extended capacity oil pan to the second generation 86s. You have one now on your car. So I want to get your thoughts on that and the installation process and all that stuff. And HPD Corner, the topic I wanted to get your thoughts on today is using tire pressures to manipulate the balance of a car. I think the short of it is I think it's often underappreciated what you can do, and one of the only things that you really can do when you're at the track. So I want to get some conversation there. And we do have two Q&A that we're going to discuss at the end as well.
Let's get right into it.
Okay, so let's jump into it. So today, as we're recording this, what day is it? April's
3rd?
What's
today's
the day?
like the 3rd.
Today's the 3rd. Okay,
yeah.
Today's the 3rd. Yesterday there was the big tariff announcements, and the short of it, I think, is basically baseline is going to be 10% import tax on like basically everything from every country into the U.S. And for automotive, it's was it 25%? And that's depends on what country you're coming from. Like if it's coming from, like imports from like Japan and from China is going to be even higher, right?
Yeah.
And so what does that translate into as car enthusiasts? Like let's say like you're in the market for buying. I think three things I want to kind of bring up. One is what if you're in the market for a new car? And the second is, what if you're in the market for a used car? And the third is, what if you're in the market for some high-end, not even high-end, but like expensive parts?
Yeah.
Right? What is that going to look
I
like?
think if we backtrack just a little bit, before this whole tariff thing, the whole COVID-19 situation with car prices being crazy, interest rates were really low for a very long time, right? And so people bought a lot of cars. And the thing is, I'm not an economy major or anything like that, but I think once the price of something goes up, even though there's some sort of economic changes here and there, or even interest rates drop back down, like it doesn't really change. Things kind of like inflate, of course, and then it becomes more expensive.
Yep.
And then we're at this point where car prices went up a lot. They've come down a little bit, but now we had throw in these tariffs. Maybe we start with the used cars, because I recently bought a used car. And looking for something in that affordable, cheap car range when you're, like 16, 17, 18 years old, maybe 20 years old, like enough to like find a summer job, find a car that you can work on or maybe drive around. I think that cheap, affordable car is not going to be existent because new cars are just so expensive. I think we're going to see more and more higher and higher mileage, older cars, because that sweet spot for an affordable car is just not there.
Yep.
Right. I don't think that car even exists anymore because of where we're at plus tariffs.
Yeah, it's kind of hard right now to think of like what the medium term is going to look like. Nobody really knows. Like there's so much happening, but what is, like you said, what's really top of mind for us right now is just what happened during COVID, where everything was supply constrained, right? Chip shortages, other shortages. I mean, like. There's a Genesis dealership across the street from where I live, and they basically shut down the dealership because they didn't have any cars to sell.
Yeah.
Right. And even now you look at like trying to get like a Toyota hybrid, you're like, good luck.
Yeah,
It's way longer than a year wait time, right? And by that time, like, you might even just get an allocation for a completely different car because they've changed over on generations and stuff like that, right? I think it's hard to talk about the used car market because it's going to be a bit derivative of the new car market. And what we know for new car market, well, like, a lot of, other than domestic manufacturers in the US, even the domestic ones, like, you're going to be importing parts, critical parts, right? And so, like, I think it's going to take a while for, like, if everything actually gets implemented, it's going to take a while to get down to properly taxing components, smaller components. Like, what I've read is, like, for major, like, assemblies, like engine, transmission, electrical, and stuff like that. And even that is, like, it's a little bit vague. Like, they're going to have taxes on that. But at some point, like, components that you're buying from other manufacturers overseas, even if you're like a Ford or a GM or whatever, for your domestic lines that are being manufactured in the US, you're still going to have higher costs of production, right?
Yeah.
So all I have to say is, like, new cars are going to be more expensive. Who's going to bear that cost? I think everyone along the value chain down to the customer is going to feel some of that, right? Like, manufacturers are going to have to increase their price. They may take some of that increase against their margin. Dealerships are going to pay more for cars from the manufacturers, but they're also going to take some of that and absorb some of that margin and that cost into their margin. And then the consumers are going to have to pay more, right? So for any given price point, there's going to be less supply or, like, willingness to sell that car for that price point. And then what's going to happen on, like, so that's the micro side. And what's going to happen on the macro side? Well, the markets are reacting. Futures are down. Like, today, I think I read, like, futures are down like 3%. So that's going to impact the overall economy. People are going to lose jobs in the short term. And demand, I think, is going to suffer there too, because at any given price point, there's going to be fewer people that are going to be looking to purchase that a car. Right, any given car, right? So, I think, again, like, arguable what's going to happen in the long term, right? Is the tariff going to lead to economic prosperity because of all the tax dollars, and then forcing international manufacturers to set up, like, localized manufacturing? I mean, those are all the things that are being discussed as, like, the pros for doing this. In the short term, like, it's going to be more expensive. I think fewer people are going to be looking to buy at those price points, which means on the used car market, as the alternative to a new car, is also going to get the price is going to rise, right? In the short term. Now, an interesting point about you bring up, you recently just bought a new used car, a new to you used car, right? You got an M3 E90. That's a little bit, there's always going to be that special consideration for a car that's essentially like a collectible car, right? That, there's probably going to be some impact of, like, what's happening in the overall marketplace for used vehicles. But for a car that you're collecting, that's really more dependent on things related to that car itself, as opposed to what's kind of happening in the market, right? So if you're going after a specific car that you're thinking about buying, like, it probably won't be as impacted as much as just, like, true supply. Like, how many of those cars are out there? How many YouTubers are making builds about that car such that they're inflating the value of the car? Like, those things are going to matter more than what's happening in the economy, I think, for very specific cars, right? But I do think it'll be interesting to see how this is going to trickle down and impact parts as well, right? Like, the reciprocal tariffs against Japan, I think it's like fully loaded is like 24%. To China is over 50%. When they, actually properly start taxing those things, and even before that, the proper taxation happens, because it's actually very difficult to implement, our manufacturer is going to, be react earlier and adjust their pricing and stuff like that, right? Just to prepare, right? Even let's say, like, you're a Canadian company and you brought in a lot of parts already. You already have that on hand. Well, you don't want to have opportunity cost of selling that for cheaper, that inventory. If you know that these tariffs are coming in, maybe you adjust your prices ahead of time, right?
I wonder if some of the, on the automotive side, if some of the manufacturers going to absorb some of those tariffs, right? I don't know. Just look at Mazda, Toyota, maybe even for a little bit and kind of ride it out a little bit and see kind of what the landscape looks like in a few months. Or I don't know, is this just going to be like push and shove and see what happens and see who gives first and see who can last longer? But yeah, I mean, the world is so globalized now. Even like a Tesla, right? The battery comes from there, that headlight comes from there, or whatever. It's manufactured in the States, but there's, different things that come from different areas. So I think everyone's going to hurt a little bit. And even if, affordability is one thing, but even if you're in the market and you have the money, you're probably going to wait a little bit until you make that big purchase if it is a new car, right? So
Yeah, exactly. And
everyone's going to try to ride it out and see what happens, right?
Yeah, I think I read somewhere like BMW is already committed to not raising their prices at least through May, or something like that. So yeah, we'll see how long people hold down, who's first to break. But I mean, anecdotally, right? So like, I just bought a new to me 2021 X5 45e CPO. I got mine for 58.4 after like all fees. Pre-tax, but all fees loaded in.
Which is a steal, by the way.
Now I think it is, because I bought it at the same time as our friend Chris Bisson. Like he was looking to buy one. He called up a bunch of dealers and they were all vying for his business. He picked the one that he wanted and I just took one of the ones that he already worked. So I got that, and then he got one of his colleagues interested in one too, and they're looking for, and they can't find one less than 63.
Yeah.
Almost like a $5,000 difference. And that one that they were looking at is like in Ottawa with 75,000 kilometers, and mine only had like 50 on the dot. So just a couple of weeks, it went up quite a bit. I mean, that's a very specific case, but I think it'll probably be a tough year or two if you're looking to buy like just a daily. You're probably going to be paying a bit more. But again, like we very recently went through a very similar situation in pricing situation and availability situation with COVID. Now, what's causing that is a little bit different, but I think it's not going to feel super foreign, but it will be different. Yeah. All right, next piece of news. So Nissan's new CEO just got installed beginning of the month, Ivan Espinosa. All right, so he was on Top Gear recently, and he was saying that they want to bring more Halo cars to Nissan. And if you think about like the brands and the labels that they have, right? GTR, the Z, the Silvia. Only the Z is being manufactured right now, right? Being in use. Like GTR is like basically dead at this point. They're not making any more of those. What's your take on, like, if you were to give Nissan the brand a score or rating right now compared to like other car enthusiast brands, where are they in that spectrum?
Honestly, if Toyota is like really up there, which I think they are, the GR brand has just been crazy. They've just been banger after banger, car after car, and they're like Honda in the early 2000s, right? That's how I see Toyota right now. Nissan is just like old news to me, right? Like I say that because I used to love the R35 GTR when it first came out, and then that car stayed the same for over a decade. That chassis, like they barely changed it. They stuck on the R35 forever. I don't know if an R36 is coming, but with this new CEO who is trying to, I guess, jumpstart the performance side of Nissan, create some affordable sports cars. I mean, I really hope it does happen. Maybe some competitors like the BRZ, the Miata, that sort of thing. But right now, I think they're like pretty low. Yeah, right. They need to bring back like the Silvia or the Z. Honestly, I haven't even seen one on the road.
Yeah,
I really haven't. The number of Supras I've seen around, number of Z4s or BMW M cars or all these other brands or GR86s, BRZs. I haven't seen a Z.
Yeah. Yeah, that car, I would say, was a bit of a flop.
I would say
it didn't really fit in anywhere. Like, it was decently expensive, but I think on the performance side, like, I think it didn't really have like the handling, right? And it was like a little heavier. And like at that price point, like you're kind of like on the low end of the Supra, I think, right? So, I mean, when you think about Nissan as a business, like what has been happening over the past couple of years. Like most recently, they were trying to pull off a merger with Honda.
Yeah.
Right, Honda was trying to come in and say, "Hey, this might be an opportunity to scoop them up." Would have been huge. Would have been a blockbuster deal. And I think that's like because that merger failed. That's probably why they're ushering in a new CEO. To be honest, like when you take a swing at something that big and you can't pull it off, you kind of have to.
Yeah, you got to
force to change leadership a little bit. But I know I like to believe that they're going to be able to do this or even try to do this. But like when you're a company that's struggling in that position, this is a big gamble. This is a big bet, and I think it could be effective. You can pull it off. Like if you capture the hearts of the enthusiasts by making these cars, and maybe you're not making that much direct revenue from these, but there's that marketing halo. Right? I mean, that's why they call them halo cars, right? Like that people are going to talk about it. You're going to get free discussion and buzz, right? And it's going to be really hard to calculate that ROI on that marketing, which is always like marketing ROI is like super difficult to calculate. But you know that it's going to be helpful if this is in the hearts and minds of people who are really into cars, saying, "Hey, yeah, like that new Nissan, I want that." Like that's the thing. And I don't know. I'd like to believe that they're going to be able to pull it off, but in the position that they're in right now, as a publicly traded company, like that's going to be tough.
Yeah,
that's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
But they have the IP. And the branding, like if they were gonna bring back and make another S chassis, people love that.
Of course,
they would go crazy for it, just because it's called a Silvia. Now, I say that, but then you look at something like the Integra Type S, still crazy good performance car. Like there would be people who would pick that over the Type R, but when people first saw it being released, they're like, it's not quite what they were kind of envisioning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, I would love to see the Silvia. I would love to see like a lighter Z, a little bit more, kind of competing with, I don't know, what would it compete with? I guess like there's nothing really in that market other than like Mustangs.
Yeah. I know.
So
yeah, but maybe it's against maybe BRZ, GR86, Miata, stuff like that, like priced somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, but
it's gotta be cheaper than the Z, right? Like the new car if they were to make it. But it's tough for them, I think, to crack into that cheaper price point too, right?
Yeah, and just by the numbers, right? Like the 86s, I think I read is like they sell like 11,000 units in the US like last year or something like that, but the Mustangs were like 40,000.
Yeah. America.
Crazy. Or maybe those are global numbers. I don't know whether that's US or global, but maybe it's global. But yeah, like it's just huge difference because the use case is different.
Yeah.
Use case is different, right? All right. Well, that's enough for a driver's meeting. Let's move on to shop talk. So the second gen BRZ is well documented for quite a while. And we've actually had our friends from Formula Delta come on to the show to do a full episode about the research that they did on this and how they went about designing the new pan. The Gen 2 suffers from oil pressure loss, especially on right-handers.
Yes,
correct?
Yes.
The Formula Delta has been working on this. There's a few other manufacturers that are also working on a solution. These guys are local to us, so we've been keeping close to it. You closer than most people in that you now have like one of the development pans on your car. I don't want to get into the details about like the oil starvation, oil loss, and like how it's been validated. I think everyone's kind of like beat that quite a bit over the past couple of months. If you own an 86 and you track it second gen, like that this is an issue. What can you tell us about the new pan in terms of like when it's going to be available? You just installed it on your car. Like, what was that like? And maybe when you guys did testing on the track last year, what were the actual measurable benefits at that point?
So we'll start with the install. So a bunch of pans right now have gone out to California, and I can't say exactly who they're going to, but if you know who has been doing testing on oil pressure loss in California, you'll know that it's going to the best of the best. the pan, I had two of the best people there with me as well. Three of the best people. I had Calvin, which is our data engineer. We had Ping, who's an automotive engineer, install it with Luke from 13 Motorsports.
Yeah.
So my car
is the Avengers, right?
This is the Avengers of GR86 BRZ guys. Luke is the CSCS driver of the year. He has a GR86. Of course, Ping and Calvin, they developed this pan, and they went through the rigors. Like they applied scientific method. They like did all their engineering smart stuff to come to this point. And the pan is on my car, and he talked me through basically every little thing about it, and the fitment's like perfect. There's no leaks. There's everything about it is just a high quality product. And things I can say, it's like it has an additional 1.3 to 1.5 liters extra of oil capacity.
Yeah.
Plus Luke's oil cooler, an additional 1.1 liters, plus a 500 milliliter overfill. My car takes over 8 liters now, which is crazy. Like it's, small displacement motor taking so much oil, but basically I've bulletproofed the car, I think, right? For track use at least from a oil starvation standpoint.
Yeah.
And, last year when we were testing, we chose Canadian Tire Motorsports Park Grand Prix track because that track boasts the highest average speed of any track in North America. There's long, sustained right-hand turns that are 10, 12 seconds long. Like I said, with big elevation change, high Gs. And with the stock vehicle, say, for example, turn 10, which is a 12-second right-hand turn, we were able to get the car down to 27, 26 PSI sustained, which is
minimum?
Sorry?
That's a minimum?
That's the minimum sustained.
Okay,
right?
That's pretty good.
So, no. So that's the stock car.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, it was around like, high 50s and it dropped down to, 26 PSI, right?
Yeah.
That's a stock car, stock tires, me driving.
Yeah.
So that's a significant drop in oil pressure. It's not blow your engine type of oil pressure, but it's significant, oil pressure loss. Again, that was a stock car. So with 200 treadwear tires with the pan, we basically eliminated it. So we went with a stickier setup with a more aggressive alignment. We went 6 seconds faster that lap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not
and
because of the oil cooler.
not because of the oil pan, but because of stickier tires alignment.
Yeah.
But we pulled significantly more Gs. But without the pan, with coilovers, you start adding more grip, things that would add grip. You pull more Gs. That 26 could be what? I don't know. Could be even lower.
Teens.
In the teens.
I've heard
right?
teens.
Yeah. So other people have done some logging for us. They're in the teens. But with the pan, it basically solved the entire issue.
Do you remember
going 6 seconds faster? Say again.
Do you know what the oil pressure minimums went up to?
It was like, so on the back straight with the oil temperatures around 125 to 130, so warm, pretty warm.
Yeah.
Oil pressures on the back straight.
Celsius.
Yeah, Celsius.
Yeah.
The oil pressures just going in a straight line, full throttle. We're in the mid to high 50s.
Yeah.
Right. So then when we were cornering, you get a small drop to maybe like low 50s, high 40s, something like that. So we're maintaining oil pressure. The thing is, the issue is, people talk about RTV and talk about different things. The issue is that, it's at the pickup, at the level of the pickup. It's not picking up oil because the oil is either sloshing around or, Ping talks about how the entire oil capacity of the stock oil pan can be stuck in the heads.
Yeah.
Right. During high G cornering.
It's not falling down fast enough.
Exactly. It's not coming down fast enough and it's sloshing around. So, or it just comes up and gets stuck in the heads. That's why you only experience it in right turns, not left turns, because it just gets stuck up there. So with increased capacity and baffling, basically it helps to mitigate or in most cases solve the issue.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy. We're going to do some further testing on the pan. Sold another oil pressure sensor that I can get more data, get all the temperature, get everything. I'm going to really push the car because my car with Luke, we installed coilovers, camber arms, some solid bushings, a whole bunch of stuff to make the car go even faster. A really aggressive alignment, sticky 200 Nankang tires, and then we'll go back again. And I'm confident that it's going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like because you guys didn't have that many test cars to be able to do like for like comparisons, right? Like, it sounds like we didn't get like a really good benchmark of full traction setup with the tires and the coilovers on the stock pan. Ideally it would have been like the same day and you have like two different cars, exact same. So I don't think difference, it's the pan. But because it's now the pan has been sent out to so many other cars in California, I'm thinking over the past next couple of weeks, we're going to see a lot of posts and a lot of videos and data coming back. So it'll be really interesting to see.
Yeah.
The other thing I know, like they've been working hard to make sure that the pan fits with a bunch of different headers. Right? That's the design with the FA motors. Like the bigger your pan is, the more that it's going to potentially get in the way of the headers, which are at the bottom of the engine, right, and going rearward. So it kind of wraps around the pan. And I know they've been looking at like turbo kits and stuff like that. Fits the HKS turbo, which Enrique, owner of Driven, which we're at right now, is doing an HKS turbo swap or turbo installation into his second gen BRZ, and I think we're gonna get one of the pans for that as well. And pretty cool that they already have like the bungs for the oil return and stuff like that too. That's gonna be helpful.
The product is I know they have a background in engineering. They're really smart guys.
Yeah.
But I am just like really impressed at what these guys
I've seen some of the photos and it's like, it doesn't look like any oil pan that I've seen before. It's pretty cool.
It is so clever how I can't say anything else, but just wait another week or two, another week. I have a video that I'm going to post on it on my YouTube channel. We install it. We show the whole pan. You get all the information. Check out Driver's Paddock on YouTube. I'm super excited for them. You know, I'm not part of the development team. I'm part of more like the testing team. But really, really excited for them. I'm just shocked that these guys were able to pull it all together, do all the work that they did, gather all the data that did, make the connections. Just it is a product that I would stand by.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, it's on your car. So
yeah. Well, another question is, when can you guys get it? I think the actual production pans are going to be set to arrive at the end of this month. So I think they're already taking or about to take pre-orders. So check out Formula Delta, check out their YouTube, their Instagram. You can email them as well, but it's coming.
Nice. Yeah. All right. Moving on to next segment, HPD Corner. Ooh. All right. So what I want to talk about today is tire pressures. And the reason why I want to bring it up is like, it's one of those things where it's almost like a lot of people, when you first get started, is like, you ask people, oh, what's the right tire pressure to run? And they just set and forget, and they just try to bleed air throughout the day to hit that number, right? Specifically, what I want to talk about is like, how can we use tire pressures to manipulate the balance of the car? When should you do it? And how do you know whether the change that you made is actually helping? Right. So what's your personal philosophy on tire pressures? Like when you get to the track on a track day, like what's going in your mind when it comes to setting the pressure?
Right. So I think you said something. How do you know that it's working? How do you track it? You have to take notes. And there's a lot of things to consider. Temperature at the time. Yep. Right. Track conditions. Like if it's raining or if it's dry or if it's dusty, you're going to run different tire pressures, right? I think what people need to consider is that your tire, first of all, it's the only thing that's touching the ground, super important. But the tire is kind of like a spring. It is like a spring, right? And so the more tire pressure you put into there, right? It affects how stiff the sidewalls are. Yep. Right. And it affects your contact patch. It affects so many different things. Yep. And so for myself, I like to, let's say I'm running a Nanking CRS. I already know exactly what the M2 needs because I've tracked the stuff. I've written it all down. I've tried higher pressures. I've tried lower pressures. I've tried a differential between the front and the rear. But the Nankings on my car, the weight of my vehicle is around 3,350. I like to run 32, 33 hot. And I like my pressures a little bit higher than most people because I do like a stiffer sidewall. Yeah. So there's so many things to consider, but I'm thinking a good starting point is look at the recommended PSI for your tire. Okay. Look at the conditions, right? If it's a cooler day, maybe you don't bleed it off as much. If it's a really hot day, you bleed off a little bit more. And it's important to slowly bring your tire pressure up during your warm-up session, your first session, and then come back and check them. So whatever the recommended pressures are, let's say maybe like a Michelin PS4S is maybe probably like 38 recommended. I'd probably bleed it down to like a 33, maybe like 5 PSI drop make it even, right? See how the car feels. Don't push super, super hard. Come back, check your tire pressures again, and then kind of see where it is and try to find, where it sort of settles around, 5 or 6 PSI, less than recommended. I think that's a very basic starting point.
Yeah.
But you really need to fine tune that. Things like camber, alignment, again, temperatures, humidity, how hard you're driving, like whether the front wheels are driven, the rear wheels are driven, whether you want the car to rotate more, rotate less, personal preference as well. There's just so many things to consider, but I think that's a good starting point. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that all makes sense. The point that I would make is you should think about setting your tire pressures a little bit differently when it comes to, hey, this is a street car that I'm bringing to the track. I'm pretty new and I have not set up my car, versus this is a track car only. It has proper geometry, suspension, and I want to set the tire pressures to optimize grip, right? The latter is actually easier, right? If you have a fully prepped track car, it's got, it doesn't deal with like tires rolling over. It's got proper camber. You have coilovers on it. How do you set the tire pressures? It's pretty easy, actually. You just get a tire probe, right? And you measure the temperature between the outside, the middle, and the inside on all 4 corners. If the temperature is low in the middle, then you inflate the tire so it rounds out more in the middle. And if it's high in the middle, then you bleed out, right? The point is you're trying to maximize the contact patch through the course of the entire lap, which should give you as a evidence of that is your tire temperature across the width of it is going to be fairly uniform. Now, with a compromised car that you're just bringing, let's say it's your first couple of HPDs, you got to think about this a little bit differently. Yes, what we just said about the prep track car makes sense, but you may actually have to deal with bigger issues that tire pressures can help you with. So, for example, my GTI that I ran last year and the year before, even though it had camber, the front suspension was super soft, stock suspension. The tires were rolling over, and it
so
was
much so that
you can see it on the sidewall.
The sidewall was
getting pinched,
pinching over to make like this little sausage ring around his Nankangs. And Nankangs have a pretty stiff sidewall to begin with; they're Kevlar reinforced. But anyway, sorry. Continue.
Yeah. So
it was crazy.
So at one point, you're just like, well, I have good contact patch when the car is like in a sweeping corner or something like that, but in the hairpins, it would just completely fall over itself on the sidewalls. And so I'm like, then you got to think, okay, what do I want to optimize for? For me, at a course like DDT, exiting the hairpins is extremely important. And so I decided to trade off, proper balance through like a sweeping corner by just adding a lot more tire pressure in the front so that it doesn't roll over on those hairpins. And that's a compromise, but that's what I saw as like the biggest issue, right? And so to help that even more and to get the car to rotate more in the slow corners, I increased the rear tire pressures to a crazy amount, like 45 PSI. I even tried 50 at one point, but then the car was like super loose on the sweepers that it would start drifting on like one of the fastest corners, like through 6 and 7. And so for the GTI, compromised, no coilovers. If it had coilovers, it'd be a completely different story. I actually ended up just like increasing the front and rear tire pressures more than what I would do on my 86, which has proper suspension for the track or in alignment.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to what I was saying in the beginning. Like the tire is also like a spring, right?
Yeah.
And the sidewall stiffness is one thing that can be manipulated and contact patch with tire pressures.
Yeah.
So if you have a really soft spring rate, right, you can do other things to add tire pressure. Like you can't change the spring rate at the track. Well, maybe you can if you have a full mechanic team, but we're talking about like grassroots here, right?
Yeah.
So one thing is increase tire pressures because that's part of that whole system of damping. The spring rate, the tire pressures, all that kind of works together to help you corner, accelerate, etc. Right? So, no,
that's the key, right? Like, let's say you bring a car. Let's say if you don't have adjustable suspension, tire pressure is all you got, other than your own driving. And picking the lines and whatnot. But in terms of changes that you can make to the car, tire pressure is all you got. And I would say that people underestimate what tire pressures can do to a car. And so yeah, just add it to your toolkit, figure out, what works for you, try sweep through some tire pressure and just see what happens, right? It's very valuable, especially for if you're doing time attack.
Yeah, absolutely. And changing the balance of the car, like you talked about, you added a lot more tire pressure in the rear to reduce grip in the rear so that the car would rotate.
But again, this is trade-offs, right? I gave up grip through the sweepers. It became a lot loose through the sweepers, but it got the car pointed faster exiting a corner, and net, that's a better outcome.
Yeah, and in that year, I think you had like 5 class records and the overall championship in your class. It's I think a lot of people would actually just try bleeding more from the front, but that would make it way
even worse
because you're thinking like, okay, I'm at like 36 hot now. What's going on? Let me bleed more. It's going to roll over more and more, rather than, okay, let's keep the pressures in the front for good sidewall stiffness, but add some to the rear to get it to rotate. Just for example, right? So many things you can do with tire pressure, and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I can't take all the credit for that. I was basically just chatting with Sean Ma,
shout out to Sean
front-wheel drive specialist, and getting all that advice. It was a very academic experience. All right, let's move on to Q&A. So I got 2 questions for us today. All right, first one is, how does lapping or going to lapping days, right, HPD, transition to time attack or competition?
Why don't you start with that one?
I actually think from a driving perspective, there's not that much different. What I would say is it's more of like the logistics and mental preparation. Right? Lapping, you go and everyone gives the same advice. It's like when you're comfortable to go out for your session, go do it. If you're not feeling it, don't do it. Same thing applies to time attack, but I think there's just a little bit more pressure of like being on schedule, lining up for your session. And sometimes you're like in the car for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes if it's running behind, you're getting hot and whatnot. I think your first competition, you might be thinking about like, how do I just squeeze everything I've got out of every single session, out of every single lap? But I think you just kind of like have to build up to it, right? You have to, the things that you got to recognize is like track conditions matter a lot. So don't think about comparing to yourself in terms of, hey, what was my PB and can I do that? Just take a look at the field, right? And I think that's like, if everyone's going a little bit slower, that's just the condition of the track today. It's not about setting the absolute fastest lap if you want to win. It's like, you just got to be better than everybody else, right? And so I think it's more of a mental game, right? Like trust in yourself, trust in the training and the time you put in at the lapping days, and just ease yourself into the competition. Don't set goals to, podium your first time out. You're probably going to feel like it's like drinking from a fire hose, even though you've done track lapping, even though you've been to that track before, but just the logistics around it of the day, right? And trying to stay on schedule, having very few laps to feel out the car and whatnot. Like, don't put that kind of extra pressure on yourself. Just go do your thing, and look for incremental benefits. There's going to be a lot more emphasis on sighting laps, trying to learn what the conditions are like that day, right? That isn't as relevant for track days where you're just kind of going out there and having fun with your friends. It's its own thing on the preparation, the mental side, I would say.
Yeah. I always take the mentality of like, you don't know what you don't know, right? So always taking that learning mindset and growing. I'd say just talk to a bunch of people that have sort of done that and been there. Maybe get a coach. Yeah. Because when you start to really push yourself and push the car, like those margins become smaller and smaller and smaller, right? Yeah. It's of course different than a lapping day, but I think a great starting point is like Ontario Time Attack, right? Because they have those practice sessions, they have schools as well, and the pressure isn't to set your PB in like final attack. You have 3 hot laps.
Yeah.
Warm up, 3 hot, 1 cool down. Obviously, that's very exciting and very fun, but you get multiple sessions to feel out the car, to take your time. But if to really push the car and really do time attack, like like Jason said, it's not that much different than lapping. But you got to be in a good headspace to not crash your car, not push over the limit, right? And sort of like, don't expect a podium right off the bat, and sort of take that learning, growing mindset. But also don't be afraid to show up, because, it's a lot of fun, and there's a great community behind it, especially here in Ontario.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about Ontario Time Attack, and obviously, some of our listeners might not be from the area. So what you would look for is any organization that offers both Time Attack as well as HPDE or schools.
Yeah,
that's probably the right combination, because they're going to be more mindful of like, how do you transition people into competition. And maybe they offer the HPDE as a way to help people transition into competition. Those are the type of organizations that you want to look for, that are going to be more mindful of how to do this safely, how to transition, how to grow a driver into the competition space. All right, last question is, what is the best sports car under 50,000? I'm assuming this is like for someone who wants to take it to the track. Is it the BRZ and the 86, or is it something else?
Well, I mean, I own a BRZ, right, Gen 2. So I think with the Formula Delta pan and the oil cooler, solving that oil starvation issue, I think it's a great platform. Yeah. I think Miatas are too expensive, and personally for myself, too small. Right,
not enough headroom.
Unless
you get like an aftermarket seat, like the helmet's touching. In the RF.
And the BRZ 86, like it's actually pretty usable, like trunk space wise. Like put stuff in the back seats.
Not full set of tires.
Yeah, full set of tires. I think there's a lot of aftermarket support with that car as well. And Miata with the soft top, you need a roll bar.
Yeah,
and with the hard top, I don't think anybody currently makes, correct me if I'm wrong, but currently makes a roll bar that doesn't take out the automatic mechanism for the hard top. That's what John was telling me. But nothing beats his your 86 BRZ at this point.
Yeah.
For 50,000, what can you get for 50,000? You can't get, can you even get a 4-cylinder Supra? But like, that is not a better car.
Yeah, it's gonna be more expensive to run. Like, you got to think about consumables, all right? So, what are the principles? Right? So, I think the things that you want to think about is it just going to be a track car? Do you need to be dual duty? Right? There's a few options to kind of think about there. 86 is still good for that aspect. The other thing you want to think about is like, is it going to grow with you as an enthusiast as you get deeper? Is it going to scale? Right? So, let's take, for example, it's not a very popular car, but like the Ford Fiesta ST, when it first came out, a lot of people were like, hey, this is a fun car. It's turbo, it's quick, it's got torque steer. The problem is you can't fit wide tires. I don't think you can even put like over 200 width tires easily on that car. It's just like chassis limited, right? So that's an example of a car that's not going to scale, even though it's probably pretty fun, right? Honda Fit, first gen, second gen actually are great track cars, but they can be a little bit limited in terms of like, hey, if you want to experience a car at pace, right? It's its own thing. It's I still love it when I get a chance to track a fit, because they're just a ton of fun, right? So like I think that the three cars that I would look at, maybe four, right? It's the 86, first gen or second gen, like up to your budget. The Miata for someone who's not as tall, right? Like I honestly, like I'm 5'11", and I'm kind of cramped for the track. I need like a lower seat, and they have like seat lowering rails even for the stock seats, I think, or something like that. The GTI, especially the Mark 8, man, like it's a very capable track car, but it's front wheel drive, so like it has you can do very well at the track and in competition with that car. The way to set it up is just going to be a little bit different, obviously, than a rear wheel drive car. It's its own thing, but the plus side of the Golf is obviously like very usable as a daily as well. Tons of space. Before the X5, that was my daily, and I loved it. I might still even get one in the future at some point. And then the other would be the Elantra N, right? Pick and choose between the GTI and the Elantra. Like, both have DCTs, both are front wheel drive, 4-cylinder turbos, pretty similar, horsepower, I think. So, I don't know. Like,
the Elantra's well over 50K now, I think.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's expensive, man.
Okay, well, maybe not that. Maybe not that. Then GTI. Yeah. That's kind of like the three that would be on top of my mind. So it really just like comes down to like, one thing that I would say, like, people just don't think a lot about enough at the beginning is like, is that car, if let's say, like, obviously people don't want to like overinvest at the beginning, but like, if you're really into like sim racing already, like, you're a car person, think about whether, if you're buying your first car that you want to take to the track, if that's going to scale with you through the years, or if it's something like, hey, like, I love tracking, and then you immediately realize that the car that you bought to take to the track is not the right platform for performance as well as cost. Right?
It's definitely a car that you can grow and learn with, the GR86 BRZ, and you're the perfect example of that, right? So you started off with a NA stock FRS. Over the years, you did the nice NA build. It was great, coilovers, all that stuff, all the goodies. Then supercharger, half cage, all that stuff. Soon became more and more of a track car. You got brakes, all that stuff. Now it's becoming a K-swap turbo DCT beast that has grown with you. And the thing is, let's say you buy a Gen 1 a long time ago for MSRP, what, 25, 30, 25 at the time?
High 20s,
High 20s at the time. It's depreciated over time. Maybe the car, if it was stock right now, would be maybe worth like, what, 10,000, 12,000? Okay.
Well, I mean, with the mileage, if it's at the engine,
if it
probably in the mid-teens.
Mid-teens.
Yeah.
That, like, at mid-teens, do you sell that car, or do you like sort of put more in it and grow with it and keep it?
Yeah.
It's probably worth more to you than mid-teens at that point, right?
Exactly.
So the long-term payoff of this car versus buying like something like really expensive that has equal performance, equal enjoyment, for you has, I think, paid off and will pay off, right?
Yeah.
And so, your point about long-term happiness and growing with the car, I think that's the one. I think the front-wheel drive cars, unless you do some sort of crazy TCR build, but I don't think it's going to give you as much enjoyment as a front engine rear-wheel drive car would. It's very debatable, right?
You talk to our friend, like you talk to Leo.
Sean, Leo.
Yeah, they're gonna be like, and they're like hardcore track guys, and they're front wheel drive first.
So
it's just different.
It's different, but personally speaking, right? Very biased. I think BRZ. I mean, I put my money where my mouth is, right? I have a BRZ, so
yeah. All right, that's it.
Yeah.
Anything else we want to say?
No, that's it. That's it.
That's it. That's it. Sign up. That's it. All right. Okay. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.
See you. Bye.
See ya.